Minneapolis City.
To post goals!
The People's Pitch Podcast, brought to you by Summit Brewing Company.
Hey party people in the place to be, what is up? I am your gracious host, Jon, and I am so excited to entertain you on another version of the People's Pitch Podcast, the official podcast of your Minneapolis City Soccer Club. And it wouldn't be a show if I didn't have my right-hand man with me, the angel on the top of my Christmas tree, the Nathan Morales. Nate, what up, dog? I missed us.
Yeah, man. I did too. I'm in a Christmas mood, man. Funny you said that. We put up our tree this weekend, and we have a penguin on top of ours.
Ooh.
Some sort of a felt penguin because I have a weird family. But whatever you want me to be, I'll be it, man. As long as I'm on top.
So you're the chameleon on top of my Christmas tree. Instead of the pickle that if you find it, you get to open the first present.
Oh, that's such a German thing.
So German. What about me, since you've known me, doesn't say that I'm German?
We do a pickle. We do a pickle around here.
Dude, it's the best. But we don't even open presents here, so we just have a random pickle hanging out in our tree. It's actually in the same general vicinity as a couple green beans that we have.
Oh, just to mess with people?
Yep. Yeah, you gotta throw people off the scent.
Like it's like a Where's Waldo situation. Like, is that Waldo or is that an Egyptian pharaoh with a red hat?
Yep. See, yeah, that's basically what it is. But anyways, enough about our weird Christmas ornaments. This is huge news day for Minneapolis City in the middle of a huge offseason for the team. We're going to dive right into the big news of the day and recap some of the other talkers from the last month. We announced earlier today that we are making the move from the PLA, the Premier League of America, to the NPSL. Nate's going to kind of grill me about that in a little bit, so we'll have more on that. And after some exploration and a member survey, we've decided on whether or not we are going to be fielding an under-23 team. So, again, more on that. I'm sure Nate has a bunch of questions for me on that. And finally, me in particular, has been busy on the phones signing the foundation of next summer's team. So today we're going to break down who we locked up and who we hope to see contribute this summer, guys that turned us down and reasons why. So it's going to be an exciting show today. So let's just get right into it.
Yeah, man. Lot of news today. It's pretty exciting that we're able to come out with this podcast right after you guys dropped this bomb on us today and announced that we are leaving the PLA, where we enjoyed a pretty good first season. And we're going to be joining the NPSL, which is the National Premier Soccer League. And, Jon, I'm going to assume that there were a number of reasons for this. So let's get started breaking this down. Obviously, the first question is, why make this change?
So the opportunity presented itself to us as kind of like a off-the-cuff invitation, kind of like, hey, would you guys ever think about doing this? And, we kick things around. And the decision kind of fell down to what benefits us. Like last summer, it was like we need to find a league, and we found a great home in the Premier League of America, in the PLA. Made some great friends, made some great enemies, some great frenemies. But as far as long-term future of the success of the league, expansion, even just longevity and structure. The NPSL offers much more than the PLA does, and I can kind of get into that a little bit in detail throughout the questions you're going to ask me. But the other thing was geographical distance. They're basically building a conference around us, I think, with teams from provisional NPSL divisions last summer, existing NPSL teams, and new expansion teams that will be coming with us. So we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. But the opportunity for us to not only have more backyard rivalries and games for our fans that can go to both home and away, that increased tenfold. So now we not only have the ability to have hashtag Mitch and Big Beard Baker and all the crazies from the citizens be at our home games. But our furthest away game is now going to be 3 hours, where our closest away game was 4 hours away from us in the PLA. So I think it's good all around, and the national exposure of that league and the ability for us to insert players into the end of the season player showcase. So to get those guys exposure, if they want to move on to a higher level and maybe a professional soccer, is something that the PLA didn't offer.
Yeah, that's really nice. I think, from following them on Twitter and keeping an eye on what's going on around the league, they are pretty seems like they're ramping up lately. They, like you said, they're adding these divisions, they're adding conferences. In your conversations with the NPSL, have you gotten an impression of what their vision is for the future? Like, what are they trying to become? Are they gonna fill this void that was like the third division?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, the U.S. soccer is the Wild West, man. Like, so you have like the sheriff who's out the top who tries to own everything, and then you got bandits all over the place. They're just like robbing safes and like stealing cattle, and it's nuts. And there's so many people going in different directions. And I was recently on a national podcast, which we'll talk about a little bit more about later, and they kind of asked me the same question about like the landscape of U.S. soccer and where MPSL fits. And I think the number one thing about the MPSL is it's fairly established from a longevity perspective. I mentioned that earlier, but it's something that they've been around for a while, and they expand pretty aggressively, but they expand aggressively in a very calculated fashion where they'll expand, but they'll only expand when it makes sense. And in our case, it makes sense because there's now going to be a Great Lakes division that's in the north, and that's going to be our division. And it brings more people together, and it kind of, I think in the future, affords the opportunity within these regions to actually have promotion relegation, to be honest with you, within your region. So you have a top region. You're still playing top amateur or semi-professional soccer at a second level, trying to promote yourself into the first division, to then have. And the nice thing too is there's a true national champion at the end of the day, and you look at the NASL, they're dropping like flies. USL is picking up a few of those guys. PDL is pretty well established, like the MPSL as well, where that's the next step to pro. Where you're right there. So I think it's only logical that our aspirations of what we want at the level that we're at, we know we're never going to go to the MLS. We know that USL probably is not attainable, but something like the PDL could be in the future. But right now, the MPSL is really it's a great home for us.
So it looks like our conference is gonna, like you said, they're kind of building this conference around us. If not geographically, then at least with us as a linchpin, as the culture of this conference. But it's going to include this rebooted FC Fargo, which you told me last week they got bought. So that's nice that that FC Fargo is going to be sticking around in one way or another. Other people in the conference are going to be like the Twin Stars, the Milwaukee Torrent, who you've already been hating on Twitter.
The Milwaukee not be in our division. They opted for the division that's the other division in the Great Lakes, which is extremely strong. Right. So they're going to be with Detroit FC.
They're going in the Michigan guys.
Yeah. So they had the opportunity, but our division. I'll give you a quick rundown. So our division, you already mentioned.
Well, LC Aris, right from Lacrosse.
Yep. So it's Aris Lacrosse out of Lacrosse. It's Minnesota Twin Stars, which are taking the place of Minnesota United Reserves as our whipping boy in the city. A team at VSLT, which is a Hispanic group out of St. Paul, which has been in Division I men's soccer in the MASL. So we're very familiar with those guys. FC Fargo reboot, as well as a reboot of a PDL team in Sioux Falls, South Dakota that took a few years off. And then we have, so I'm trying to get my bearings straight here, make sure I covered them all. Oh, and then Duluth, which was in the APL. So, so suck it, Duluth. We signed a few of your players, which we'll get to later. Thank you for that. Thank you for the players. Same with you, Twin Stars. So it's geographically, it's incredible for our fans, and it's incredible for that rivalry and that local connection that people in Minnesota like to have, that with the teams that are in our division. And then what's going to happen is that ultimately, we have the potential to win our division, and then we'll play against the Detroit, the Grand Rapids, the Milwaukee Torrent. That'll be our next run in the national tournament if we win our division. So I'm excited, man. I can't say it enough without giving any slight to the PLA. Love those guys. Love to hate Oakland. I'm sorry. We're not going to be affiliated anymore.
Love to hate Crapids.
Love to hate Crapids. Not going to be really caring much more than I actually did about Gordy Gerson anymore. But sad to see, the Croatians go. Sad to see the Bavarians go. The folks out of Toledo. Anyone else that we came in contact with.
So one of the, we've been talking about, FC Fargo's coming back, and I remember in our first interview with Nate Angle and Matt Elder, coming from the Twin Stars, we heard a little bit about the Twin Stars. We've seen how Fargo lines up against us. We've heard that the Twin Stars are not always putting the best product on the field. Would you put the other teams that are going to be joining the league at their level?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. It's going to look on paper like we're not going to have a strong division, but we are clearly the target. So everyone's going to be bringing their A game against us. I'm not quite sure what Fargo is going to be bringing to the table. Probably something similar to what they had, knowing that when they played us, they didn't, they were kind of on the outs. They didn't bring all their players. And I know for a fact, I've played against them before. They have good talent up there. And maybe an influx of cash into that market who knows, it may bring, a level of competition that is better than what we saw. I think it will. With the Twin Stars, they have an incredible academy. Their under 23 team last year was very, very good. I think almost better than their first team. And they did share players, but overall as a solid team, they were good. So even Duluth, they had, as we know from our Open Cup, they got some solid players in Duluth. So lacrosse, don't know a whole lot about. I know that the team in Sioux Falls was a PDL reboot. I don't know how many of those guys are still sticking around from the PDL days, but they're kind of the one team I don't know about. Everybody else I kind of have a beat on, and they're going to come gunning for us. So if we take them lightly, and think we're going to walk all over this division, on paper maybe, but when soccer is a funny, weird game, we saw it this past year. So we need to be careful and just
cool.
Go to work.
Yeah, so no concern at all that this potential drop in competition level is going to affect our product at all?
I don't think so, because we're looking to still schedule a friendly series with the Bavarians, and they will be replacing Fargo as our Summit Keg match, which I think would be
nice.
Fantastic, right? And then I'm excited to also say that I think I can announce this. If not, apologies in advance. We're going to be we were invited back to Des Moines in June to play against the Des Moines Menace, and not in a preseason friendly, in an actual game, a non-league game, when they do their kit launch for their third change strip. So they're all in New Jersey. So they could have invited anyone they wanted in the country, and they invited us. So we're going to be supplementing, what some people may think. And I think they'll be surprised that our division is going to be a little stronger than they think. But we'll be supplementing that with games against two teams that we know are good at soccer.
So one of the biggest benefits, I think, of Minneapolis City is that it's many things to many players, right? It could be either a place to stay sharp, a place to develop if you're younger, a place to build up to the next step, as we've seen with some of these players, all that stuff. So really, this is a way to keep City attractive as an option for more serious players. This level of competition that like you said, there's opportunities for playing the Menace, opportunities for playing the Bavarians, to be a little more flexible, but also opportunities to kind of keep the skill level at a place where the younger guys can develop with us. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's a good spot to be in for everyone to get what they need out of City.
I think so. I mentioned it. I'll say it a third time. The history behind the MPSL has been a league that is, it's got legs. So it's quality. You look at the darlings of the league. When you think about teams in Detroit FC drawing like close to 8,000 people in some instances for an MPSL game. You look at the guys out of Cleveland. You look at the guys out of San Francisco, Grand Rapids. We start looking at some of the best teams within the league are in our Midwestern area, and it's something that you can't take away from the rivalry that we could have had from a long-term perspective with the Bavarians, but we're going to keep that alive. But also look at a more solidified league.
Yeah, that's good. So I think obviously the biggest bummer for me as I think about this is I was starting to get invested in our rivalries, and we just talked about this a little bit. But who do you think is going to be the new Crapids? Like, who are we going to love to hate?
Well, I mean Duluth, right? Like,
It's gotta be.
It's gotta be Duluth. They've already started. They started talking trash with us when they were in the APL with Fargo last year, and then we put a whooping on Fargo, and they were the team that came in first place in the APL. So suck on that one, Duluth. No, but all joking aside, I think they're going to be a big rival for us because they actually have a social media presence. The Twin Stars, I mean, a good 1/16 of our team has played with the Twin Stars at some point. So
yeah,
suck on that, Twin Stars.
History there, yeah.
And then Fargo, we're gonna have to rope off tractor parking again in the parking lot of the stadium that we select this summer for the hillbillies to come down from Fargo. So yeah, I mean, I can't really pick one. There's so much chum in the water. I don't even know what to pick.
Well, the cool thing is you never know like who's gonna really bite at the trolling that we hand out weekly on Twitter, and who's gonna be the ones that are a little more like the Bavarians and kind of play along with us, and that we end up in sort of a respectful rivalry with versus the teams that we just think are jokes.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I always joke with Patrick from the Bavarians. That he like somehow always joins in like whatever Twitter fight we're in. So he was all up in the one with Oakland. Yeah, he just kind of slides in there. And Dan and I were joking about it too the other day that like the Bavarians love a good Twitter battle. They love a good Twitter fight.
Yeah. So when we move,
you know why they love it? Because they can be like 6-time national championships, bitch.
Yeah, they're untouchable. It's like when a Packers fan starts arguing with a Vikings fan, like. We can only get so far with you people until all you do is pull out and say, well, how many Super Bowls have you won? And it's like, well, great point.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. I mean,
idiots.
I mean, if you want to talk about the Packers, we can start a new podcast.
No, I'm good. So when we join the NPSL now, what costs are associated with joining that new league? Because that's kind of the issue around the nation, right? Is that some leagues are giving discounts to teams to join. That's part of why some teams left the NASL, things like that. Like how much do we have to pay in order to get in on this?
The cost associated is kind of like one of those things that's going around U.S. soccer, and it's still, no matter if it's youth soccer or it's our level or it's higher than us, even in MLS, it's kind of pay for play model. Without getting into like specific details around like what the league costs and things like that, I don't think there's really a necessity to kind of get into that. I think it's more the associated costs around what it takes to be in the league from an operational standpoint. Mm-hmm. So the travel piece, like I mentioned before, that is significant for us, as well as we make our money on merchandise sales and we make our money on ticket sales. So now we have the opportunity for away fans to be able to travel more. I mean, how many games did we play in the PLA where the other team brought any fans outside of Minnesota United, right? And that was one of our biggest draws. So
Yeah, and they just brought Chapman's girlfriend.
who ironically already had season tickets. So so you know what I mean? Like that was our biggest draw. So I'm looking at it more from that financial aspect, that it's better for everyone in the league in this conference, because we're going to be able to be sharing revenue that the PLA kind of didn't have. I mean, if you look at the Bavarians, it wasn't until halftime until they kind of outnumbered us, and that was our first ever game as an organization.
Yeah.
So the travel costs are a big thing, and that affords us the opportunity to then go to the Des Moines and even travel down to Milwaukee and play in those friendly series, because we're saving costs by being able to have a midweek game against the Twin Stars on a Wednesday instead of having all games on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes a ton of sense, and it's something that I hadn't even thought of, is that you're going to have to pony up ahead of time, but you're saving money down the road by not having half the games that we're going to play. You can get to Duluth and back in a day. The lacrosse game is lacrosse and back in a day.
Yeah.
You'll have the guys home from obviously from the St. Paul team, from the Minneapolis team. No big deal, right? It's just instead of having to pay for travel for almost every one of our away games, we really have to pay for travel for 2.
3 if you count lacrosse.
So I mean, that's what I'm saying. Is like lacrosse isn't really that far. You can make it to home from lacrosse after a day game, no problem.
Right. I mean, in the Bisworm household, we were talking about the summer, and like, oh, when are we playing in Milwaukee so we can go back as a family? And I was like, well, we're not. We're playing elsewhere, and then we started talking about, like, how great would it be just to spend a weekend up in Duluth?
Yeah.
Or how great would it be to spend a weekend in lacrosse? And how great would it not be to spend a weekend in Des Moines? Although free publicity, the Deluxe Hotel in Des Moines, Iowa is fantastic.
I went. Was that where you guys stayed? We went DoubleTree. Oh no, you went. I'm sorry, you said Des Moines. I'm thinking about Cedar Rapids.
Yeah, Cedar Rapids. No one wants to go there.
Nope.
Still hating on those guys. But no, I mean, it's like we have the opportunity for our fans to be like, let's make a weekend of it. Let's storm in on Friday after work. Let's take over the town. Let's fly the Crow tifos all over downtown Duluth, and let's create that buzz, and that buzz that you see during, it's not in the magnitude of what you have during a World Cup, but you get like 20, 30 fans, maybe 50 fans coming from the cities up to Duluth to spend a weekend there. It's an influx of cash into the economy, and it's also just a buzz around, that's different than what normally would be there.
Yep, and then that hopefully gets them and gets their teams involved and gets them motivated to send 20, 30 people down to our games. And like you said, that's ticket sales.
Right, exactly. And we're welcoming of everyone. When we, at our home games, anyone who wanted to be there, whether you were supporting us or not, we wanted you to come, just because soccer is awesome, and watching good soccer is the point.
Yeah. So John, if we're out, and probably Minnesota United reserves will be out as they move to whether it's a USL team or a PDL team or something like that. What's going to become of the PLA? Because I mean, they still are expanding. I remember when they added the Muskegon Risers a couple of months back. I had a real brief Twitter conversation with them where they implied that there were many positive changes on the horizon. Are you catching the scent of what's going down in the PLA?
Yeah, I caught a couple whiffs of what's happening in the PLA. I think the number one thing is Aurora is moving into the West. So they were taking Minnesota United is completely out. So they will not have a reserve team in the PLA. Where their reserve team lies, like you said, it's kind of up in the air. So it was Aurora, which for us would have been like an 8-hour plus trip.
Yeah, F that.
Yeah. So, and if you look at the teams left in the division outside of Cedar Rapids, 2 teams in Milwaukee, 1 in Madison, and 1 in Aurora. That's like within 2 hours of each other. So it's
that's perfect for them.
It's very similar to what we have now in the MPSL. But I think there's an opportunity. I think that they're going to be losing some teams in the West as well. So I think longevity, the PLA may move to a single table where you're looking at everyone playing each other once. Maybe home and away, which for us was a non issue. Like there's no way we're gonna ever be able to be traveling to play like 4 teams in Michigan in 1 year, in 1 summer. It just doesn't. In what world is that a good thing?
No, I mean, look what happened to Oakland County when they came, to play us. They end up staying in Indianapolis or some shit for some reason on the way here, and it's just they travel with 13 players, one of them being the coach. It's not sustainable. So, I mean, I think all in all, I mean, now that we've talked about this, and I was obviously, we fear change, or at least, some people do, me included. And this totally makes sense. This whole move is, it sounds more and more exciting the more we talk about it.
Right. And I think the last thing I want to add to that, I briefly mentioned the player showcase. So at the end of each year, each team's afforded, I don't quite know the allotment of players, but it's afforded the opportunity to send, a handful of players that they select to a showcase in front of scouts from the USL and the PDL. And then I would be hard pressed to think that there aren't some low level MLS scouts that are also going to that, as well as like player agents and things like that. So that's great for our guys, because what we'll find out when we get into the segment about the team, some of these guys want to play pro, and we're a great feeder organization for guys that want to do that. And we're not going to hold anyone back from their aspirations to say, like, don't go play for the Chicago Fire reserves in the USL. In the USL or the PDL, play for us instead and not get the exposure because we're in the PLA, and people don't really know what that is. So
that's a hard sell.
It's a really hard sell, and I think it's a great thing for our players, and it's something positive to take away from the switch as well.
So that kind of leads us into the next segment here. We do have a lot of youth on our team, or at least a lot of our building blocks. Moving forward are younger guys. So I thought it was interesting a few weeks back when the team sent out the email with this U23 team up for a member vote. And I think it's an interesting idea that really, has a little bit of merit, but I think it deserves a lot more explanation than was given in our member email. It was a little vague. So, I think we got to move into that and talk about that. First of all, I want to be open, regardless of how the vote came out. The front office, you guys have decided to forego this for this year. Was there any particular reason?
Yes. We it's funny, during the decision-making process, I was one, I voted yes, because I am also a member, even though I'm a founder. I voted yes, and it was a unanimous decision by our membership group that we do explore this. But in the discussion internally from the top brass from our executive board, I said, let's hit pause. I wasn't the only person to say this, but my quote was, why half-ass multiple things? Let's whole-ass one thing and lock it down, and then look at expansion into a feeder system. And that decision, I think, was unanimous from the executive board, in that we know that we can draw younger players from the area. Like that's not an issue. We saw it in year one. But what it offers us in the long run is the ability for guys from, say, the MIAC. We didn't have a whole lot of MIAC guys who made the roster last year for the first team. Might be similar this year. We'll see in some of the trial periods that we're inviting some of these guys into, if there's a player that makes it. But a U23 option for that, it would be great for those guys who are playing at a Division III or an NAIA level that aren't quite there yet, but they want to stay in Minneapolis for the summer. So from a logistical standpoint and how we get things done, like we were thinking of things like, how do we do the laundry for 2 teams that are away? How do we do that? Who goes where? You know, like when we have a team going to Milwaukee one day and a team going to, Sioux Falls the next, two different directions, it fractures our ability to do one thing correct.
And what would that mean? That one team would play in the NPSL and one team would have stuck in the PLA where we, ostensibly would have had a berth still?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the options. The other option was maybe putting the 23s in the APL, which is no longer, because most of those teams are moving to the MPSL with us. So, or it's like, do we have the segments team become the 23s, but then we already have an established base of, 16 to 15 or 16 guys.
Yeah, where those guys are coming from, and they're not U23.
Right. So where do they go? So there were a lot of things that we had to kind of come around on that it just made sense. Like we know it's something that we want to do, but let's move towards that rather than trying to figure out this plus joining a new league plus everything else.
Yeah. So the shifting landscape and all the news of the last couple of weeks kind of ended up making this a moot point, and like you said, something that we're going to look at in the future. But I do think that a U23 team does seem like a great way to handle this influx of veteran players we have received thanks to our cup run, and keep everyone interested involved. So like you said, guys from D3 soccer or maybe the NAIA or something like that.
Or even like high school players. Like what do they do after the after the academy? We saw with Duncan and with Ian, it was like they fit in, but they only fit in like kind of because of their DA obligations. And even like Luke, who played two games with us because he had other obligations with Shattuck. And we, so yeah, I mean, it goes from high school level, and I mean, you can even find a guy who's like 16 or 17 from maybe like an inner city area that plays kind of more pickup and something a little less organized, that we're now offered the opportunity to give them a place to play at a higher level that'll only make them better for something like a college decision.
Yeah. Financially, when we decide to move forward with this, how difficult will this be? I mean, you already mentioned you're going to have to worry about a lot more supplies. There's going to be uniforms and whatnot and all the maintenance involved with that, a little bit more travel, things like that. Is it something that felt a little prohibitive at this stage?
I think we would have been able to figure out how to make it work, but obviously it's a business, so finances are a driving force. So, like I said, we would have been able to make it work, but it's something that we can now budget for and save for versus us just trying to figure out how to split, $1 into two.
Yeah. So with the email you guys had sent out, and there was, not a whole ton of detail on how the U23 team would work. I was a little trepidatious about it because it's sort of, to me, signals like a move away from youth in our squad. And I'm a little torn over that. Because on one hand, right, our college players are guys that excel at their level, and we can really, as fans, we can follow them and get behind them and really get excited about them into the fall, because they really do offer this dynamism and this level of excitement once they hit the field for us. And they are kind of hypeable. You can say like, oh, we've got a guy like Jack Myler coming back, or we've got a guy like Max Stiegwart and things like that, and you get excited about that. But on the other hand, more veterans in the starting 11 means a more competitive team, and we all like winning. So right. I'm kind of stuck in the middle on this. Where do you land on it?
Well, where I landed on it, and the reason why I chose for it, was because the early, like, we had to obviously, from an executive standpoint, we had to start thinking about what if it was a thing, how does it work? And one of the things was like, what do we do with the players and who plays where? And the U23 model that is in Europe is not really one around like, if you're 25, you can't play on the team. It's more so like a feeder system for the next level. And excuse me. And we had discussions with the coaching staff and like who would go where, who would take care of what. So we would have had a dedicated coach who would have taken care of the 23s, who would have been on the first team staff. But the players themselves would have trained the same days as the first team and with the first team. So then you're afforded the opportunity to have a training partner so that you can play full 11 aside. And these guys are getting a look by the first team, and then we can move them in and out. So what I saw it as would be, take a Division III guy who needs a little bit more time playing against better players, has the skills to play at a higher level, however, needs more game minutes. Or you have a guy coming off injury who's maybe 25 years old or 26 years old. He can drop down and play in that team for a little bit, get his legs under him, and then rejoin the first team. So I looked at it as more of like a fluid kind of 60-man roster where, we know that we have 218 teams going, for game day, but maybe we're sharing some players. Maybe we're one cohesive unit versus being two separate teams.
Yeah, that sounds cool. So I think just like with the how tough it would have been or tough it's going to be to let go of the rivalries as we move away from the PLA. I think part of my feeling or part of my trepidation to a U23 team is of course the possibility of moving away from some of our favorite younger players that we get excited about, guys like Goose or Steve or Connor Samuel. All a lot of those guys are pretty young. But the fact of the matter is you've been kind of hard at work, and you're at restocking the roster for next year, and you're finding that a lot of guys might be going in a different direction. Not as many guys would be coming back as we might have hoped, and we're replacing them with other players. So, kind of, do we want to jump into players and talk about kind of where the hunt for our players is leading us?
Man, you're the king of the segue. Let me say that. Do you own a segue?
Solid today.
Do you own a segue?
Paul Blart Mall Cop.
Yeah, is that how you get around downtown?
Segue skills, yeah, man.
Yeah. So as far as the players are concerned, great question, Nate. As you mentioned, we're kind of currently in the hunt to put the team back together and get it set up on its legs for the summer season. And being the sporting director, I've been quite the busy bizworm lately in player recruiting, which is something that I love to do because I feel like I have a little bit of a connection with each of these guys, whether they're coming back or not. And even guys that, want to play pro and trying to help them connect with someone who might be an agent or that has a connection at a trial and things like that. So we have some different needs now that we've heard back from some of the players from last year. And it looks like we have a few guys that are kind of TBD, as it might be either looking to turn pro, like I mentioned, maybe staying at school, getting internships because soccer's not their life, or just straight not coming back. So first off, let's talk about a little bit of sad news. We heard from one of our players from last year that will not be coming back for sure, and that's Andy Laurie, who's just simply going to be stepping away from the game. If you follow him on social media, he's currently spending a month in Europe, just kind of sowing his wild oats, nice. I guess you could say. But the guy just played so much soccer with us and men's league and coaching over last summer that he just needed a break. But you hear it from the horse's mouth that he said that if he's going to come back and play again at a higher level, it will be with us. So that's good. But Andy won't be back with us. Then you have another tier of players. You have Old Faithful, Captain Trey Benhart, Matthew Guay, and Abdallah, who are looking to play pro. And I think you can kind of maybe throw Sam Forsgren in that mix too, even though he's got another year left of college, his senior season. But they're going on trials. They're looking to play other places. And like I said, we're not going to hold them back. We'd love to have all of them back. And we've gotten a firm commitment that if something else doesn't work, we are it for them. And it's good, and that's good to hear. But then we have someone like Luke Hackinson, who's more than likely, I'd say like 90% sure they'd be playing at a PDL level or at least training with a USL team or an MLS team in the summer. And I mentioned, Sam Forsgren is probably going to be staying in Chicago. His brother Ike is also looking to stay in Illinois to take an internship. And then we also have a firm no from Lance Gaspar, who recently accepted a scholarship for an internship in engineering with DuPont in Indianapolis, which is great for him. And that's it's fantastic to hear that kind of story, you know. So we have to replace those guys. So, you know, as you can see, we have some holes we have to fill. And on top of that, we have some players that we still need to check in, and they need to check in with their coaches as to whether or not it's approved for them to come back and play with us, because they're kind of like their soccer boss now that they're being employed by a university through collegiate scholarships.
Yeah, I mean, we heard that from Goose when we talked in the last podcast. You know, I tried to lock him in. You know, with what I thought was kind of a softball. Like, we know you had a fun time, man. Don't you want to come back? And he sidestepped me, and I was pretty surprised about that. But I mean, it sounds like it's something that's pretty common. How does that work?
So basically, how it works is, you know, I talked about being a soccer boss, and it's kind of a joke, but it's kind of serious. Like, these college coaches are in charge of the future of their players. So when, you know, we had exit interviews, but these guys do with school, and their number one thing the coach says is, here's what you need to work on. What are your plans for the summer? And when a player says, I'm going to go back and play men's Division I soccer in Minnesota in the MASL, a coach will be like, well, not the best idea. You're getting game minutes, but it's not a high enough level. The other side of that coin is, I play with this team in the Premier League of America. It's a Midwestern league. You know, I want to go back. I had a great experience. Look what I did in school this season for you by playing with those guys last summer. But then they're like, what's the PLA? And then there's just an immediate like, huh? I don't know what that is. No, I'm going to send you to Michigan to play for the Michigan Bucks, or I'm going to send you to Grand Rapids because I have a connection there, or I'm going to send you to Cincinnati or wherever.
So again, this kind of goes back to what we talked about when we talked about moving the NPSL, is that it's a little more entrenched, it's a little more well known, and you know, the foundation is there for the league, and it's, you know, to the point where coaches are a little more likely to allow their players to play with us just by virtue of us being in that league.
Yeah, 100%. And when we get a little bit further in this conversation, we'll talk about some of the players that are coming back and how that kind of decision played into it. But you know, it's not up to us. You know, like if it was up to us, everyone would be playing for us, right? Like Minnesota United had their expansion draft today, and Christian Ramirez was probably looking over his shoulder at like, oh, they picked up a target striker in the draft.
That's weird.
What does that mean for me? I was the leading goal scorer in their league. I'll go play for Minneapolis City. Awesome. You're welcome, Christian. Here's a home for you. In a perfect world, that happens, but we know it's not a perfect world. So, you know, us elevating our league only helps for players that are in school, and players that fall into that category. You know, you mentioned Goose. Connor Stevens is another one. He had a fantastic season, second season in at Loyola, and kind of weighing his options of you know what he's going to do, and I think that for Connor specifically, you know, not having Andy Laurie back, you know, we have some other forwards on the team, and Matthew maybe trying to play pro and not knowing what he's going to do. You have the opportunity for a guy like Connor to say, Coach, I maybe was the third in the pecking order for getting, you know, starting minutes with the team last summer, but the older guys moved on, and now, you know, like there's a chance for me to play at a high level at the position you want me to play at.
Well, that would be nice to see him coming back, because, you know, he could link up with Samuel, and they've got that Eastridge connection.
Yeah, we saw it in the summer.
Yeah, that was good for us against the reserves a couple times. Anyway,
another player is Max Stigward. You know, Louisville losing out in the semifinal of the Final Four for the collegiate championship this year. You know, a guy like him could easily have his coach say, you're gonna go stay, you know, somewhere around Louisville, or you're gonna go to Cincinnati, just over the river, or you're gonna go to Cleveland, or, you know, or even Dayton. Very easy for his coach to say that. If you know, we're still in talks with Max on what he's going to do. And then you have Jack Mylar, who, you know, Harvard kind of had their issues. You know, is he going to stay there to get that Harvard education? Is soccer his thing and he wants to transfer? Don't know yet. He hasn't really gotten back to us. But he's another player that could fall into that category, as well as Duncan, you know, coming from Los Angeles. His coaches have no flipping clue who we are, right? Like, they just look at us like, what, you know, whatever. Minnesota soccer sucks, because we're in LA and LA is awesome. But, we're still trying to figure out what he's going to do and whether or not he's going to be able to be in the mix. But that ability for us to kind of sell the NPSL and that player development at the end of the season for higher levels is big for us.
So, man, it sounds like you kind of have your work cut out for you, because each of these guys not only has their own development to worry about, but I think they've got their coaches to worry about and kind of what their coach's vision for them is. And you've got to sell a number of parties on the attractiveness of a summer with Minneapolis City.
Mm-hmm.
So are we going to go after some of these Open Cup guys? I know, we've announced that a couple of them have signed for us. Obviously, Joey and Charlie Adams. So, let's start with who's coming back, and then talk about what the holes that we're going to fill are and who we're going after.
Well, I guess the simple answer, Nate, is yes. We're going to be bringing in some of the Open Cup guys. However, some are also looking to take that next step at a higher level. Currently, Abai is at a training academy in Chicago that is well connected overseas. I think Miles is going to be going down there. I think Charlie, even though he signed with us, may have an opportunity to follow suit. So, we have that pro soccer as a job thing over here that's also affecting some of our Open Cup guys. Martin Brown is one of those guys. Whitney falls in that category, even though he signed with us. But we're also bringing back some trial players. A few guys we had identified during the open trial process that, last year we identified a few players, but it didn't pan out for them at the PLA level, but they ended up playing with Stegmans, and they joined the Open Cup roster. A guy like Nick Hutton, who succumbed to injury before our Open Cup game, but he was a guy who came to an open tryout. We're like, yeah, man, you're absolutely come into the mix, and ended up playing with Stegmans. But a few guys we've identified from that process, a few more than last year actually, that we're going to be bringing in as we start bringing some of these guys back, and then also some guys that are coming from colleges that our existing players played at. One guy, Jalon Johnson, is coming from Bradley with as a recommendation from Will Kidd.
Nice.
And a few others that have mentioned that they wanted to kind of get some friends in the mix, which is great because we already know these guys. These guys are great people and players, as well as even the Stegmans connection is bringing some guys in. One guy in particular, Nick Hines, who comes way of his brother Charlie, who played on my team for a year ago, and then played on a different Stegmans team this past year. And then Nick played with us in the summer. He plays with Hastings College in NAIA, and they won the national championship. And he wants to come and try out and try to impress the coaching staff, as does a few of the players that are on his team. So it's great. We have these other guys that are coming in that we're wanted from some of these guys, which is also great to hear.
So a lot of speculation, a lot of hopefully kind of things. But who are the guys that we have signed that we know are coming back?
Okay, so without going into names right away, I think we're in a really good spot from a foundation standpoint from where we were at last year at this point.
Yep.
Especially trying to build a team and not knowing, is this guy good enough or whatnot. So we still have all the Open Cup guys that aren't going to be mentioned as we move forward here, that could fill in positions. And I want to kind of make it clear what our process was. And our process was immediately offer the players from last year a contract to play with us. Let them turn it down, and then we identified another group of players. And then we have a third group of players that we've also identified. So we have a 3-tiered system. So it's not saying that if you're in the second or third tier, you're not good enough. The second or third tier is based off of, do you have a connection with us already? Then you fell into the second tier. The third tier is you don't have a connection with us, whether it be from the Open Cup or a tryout or a referral. So all these guys are good enough to be on our first team. But let's talk about the first team. So happy to say we have a couple of old stalwarts back. So Matt Elder will be coming back. Big shocker. The guy bleeds city colors. AJ will be coming back. Wexler, who was on the Premier League of America All-League team. Timmy, who was a Stegmans guy, who just, if you watch the Open Cup game for 110 minutes, just
Yeah.
played his tail off and ended up, helping with assisting in the goal that sent us into the next round. Samo is coming back. He's going to be going to, I believe it's it's either Spain or Argentina with his Messiah team. So he'll be coming back a little bit later than most of the college guys, but he will be coming back, as well as Will Kidd will be back. Kevin Hoof, Big Game James will be in the goalkeeper room. We had already mentioned we don't know what Duncan's going to do, but James is a more than a serviceable backup if God forbid something ever happened to Matt. Then Steve Smith is going to be back, as well as two guys specifically that are coming off off-season surgeries that'll be totally ready to roll once the snow thaws here in the Great North, in AO and Nate Engel. So right there, you have an incredible base of players that have already put pen to paper. And that's not even to add on to the guys like Goose, who we know wants to come back, or Connor or Max. We're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean that's the spine of players that you've talked about for the last year or so. That we try to emulate what the Bavarians had. I remember going into them, and you said like there are going to be these same 4 or 5 dudes that are going to anchor the team, and everything else is just building blocks. That you can just Legos that you add on to turn your spaceship into like a super sweet spaceship.
Yeah.
So
space.
Space is awesome. So, I mean, that's super exciting. We, over the last season, have gotten to know a lot of these guys pretty well, so it's nice to have them back. And we'll be talking to Steve in a couple weeks to get his firsthand reaction on that. But, to your point, we do have some Open Cup players that did put pen to paper and will be coming back.
Yes. Now on to your question. And
yes.
here's your answer. We did bring those Open Cup players back, specifically 4 of them. For now, there are some that are still kind of out there, like I said, kind of on trial, and then the rest being in that second and third tier of guys that we would bring in if the first tier turns down their opportunity. First one being Joey Gustafsson, which I was really excited about because he played with Duluth last year. Thanks, Duluth. And came down for the Open Cup. Referral from some guys that were on the team. I thought it was a fantastic fit into what we have going here. Also, like I said, love the fact that he played with Duluth last year. It only throws kerosene on the rivalry fire. Then you have Charlie Adams, who I mentioned may be looking at some trials, but is officially with us. Then Dan O'Brien, who was a midfielder who was part of the initial Open Cup discussion, turned down our initial offer, but then came back to train with us through that process and to kind of get the guys ready who were on the team by elevating in training. And then, as we know, Whitney Brown coming back, put pen to paper, which is a fantastic signing for us, being that he was also...
How exciting.
Very exciting. Great player. We wish him the best in the trials he's having, but if it doesn't work out, he's with us next summer and, with us for the rest of the Open Cup run, at the least. And, can't be happy enough by these 4 guys and potentially more that are going to be coming in. And like I said, there's also a few guys that I'd love to have from the team. Like how do you not want to have a guy like Abai or Miles or Martin be part of your team, because they're not only just good guys, but they're good soccer players.
Yeah. So one of the things that I am really excited about, of course, besides the fact that you've got guys like Whitney and who's super dynamic, but you've got a guy like Charlie Adams who can come in and take over for Abdallah, because like you said, we're losing him to some trials, and he was such a linchpin, on our right side. I think that he played on the right side. I believe
he played on the left.
Oh, you're right. I guess
I'm always right, Nate.
But I mean, Charlie did so well shutting down his side that it's just it's nice to kind of have a like for like there. It's nice to be able to slot Joey in to replace Trey. Like it's not like we are downgrading any of the positions. with these replacements. So that's what I'm most excited about.
Right. And, going into the winter, and we have the next Open Cup cycle that we find out kind of our plight in January. We have a fantastic base and with the potential of only getting stronger. And I would be, like I said, I'm more than 100% behind these guys looking to advance their soccer careers. But I'd have to think that, one or two of them wander their way home, and some of the other targets land as well, that we identified, whether it be the guys from college who have their exit interviews, their coaches soon coming up because the holidays are rolling around, that, they start coming back home as well. So definitely more in the upcoming weeks, but so much to be excited about for the Crows fans throughout the globe.
Well, it's awesome because it's early yet. So you've got all these guys who have kind of got potential plans up that are, up in the air, and some things they're going to be exploring and whatnot. But I think, I have the feeling that come April, we're going to have a much better idea of what kind of a player pool we're going to be drawing from. And that's not counting the guys that we don't even know about, someone that's really cool out there that we might not have heard about yet, or that might be a referral from someone another referral from someone that's coming back. So
we have to look you have to look at too, like, we're also in the market now with our league switch and our conference being in our backyard, that the pool does dry up, but I feel like we're very attractive to players because of all that we offer. So you're also looking at like a full team of guys from Minnesota United reserves who no longer have a place to play. So
yeah, and I mean, look how that worked out for us in the Open Cup. We got 4 of them at least on our team, and they all helped lead us to victory. So
right, exactly. So like I said, more to come. It's exciting. Definitely starting to move away from sand as our foundation into concrete for a really strong squad.
That's awesome. Well, John, I think that's going to do it for us this week. It's holiday party season. I had mine last, on Monday night, which is a real weird time to do it for a work holiday party. But what better excuse, man, than an office party to rip a few pints of Summit's new Unchained series down your throat. It's did you get to try this yet, man?
I'm not going to try to big time you, but I had it before it came out.
Oh, like directly from the cask. Yeah. It's an Imperial Milk Stout that I enjoyed, and damn, man, like that 8% sneaks up on you when it's something smooth like a milk stout. Yeah, so as always, I want to thank our gracious sponsor, Summit Brewing, for giving us some love each time we hop on the airwaves.
I was gonna say, you look a little tired today, Nate.
Oh, buddy, you should have seen. You know how it is in the industry, man. You should have seen some of these people when they were rolling into work today. I was I would say one of the milder cases.
Another exciting thing is tomorrow, Thursday, we'll be at Summit handing out that sweet holiday gear y'all brought.
Those pre-orders.
Yeah, so if you ordered anything and you wanted to pick it up instead of having it shipped to you to make sure it's there by the holiday season, come on down and pick up your shit. And while you're there, and join us for a few beers. Come talk the MPSL switch, player movement. Just say hello. There's gonna be a few players down there. Helping hand out the holiday gear. Rumor is gonna be Nate Engel will be down there. Timmy Wexler might be there. Matt Elder will be there. So I'll be there. You'll be there. Come down and say hello, and let's talk about all the great things that are happening next year.
That's for sure. Speaking of next year, man, memberships for 2017 are of course on sale, and I just can't think of a better Christmas gift for all your loved ones than a membership to Minneapolis City. And don't forget, if you're trying to balance your books, right, and you're looking for a few more places to toss some of those sweet tax-deductible charitable donations, you want to consider Minneapolis City. We are a 501c3 that does a ton of good in your community. I just made that up. That's a good rhyme. Hey, also, that was horrible.
That was terrible.
Yeah, but all your details, of course, are going to be on MPLScity.com for memberships and for donations. It definitely helps deliver on the mission of Minneapolis City to bring soccer to all the people of Minneapolis.
Do some good, folks. Do some good.
If you haven't seen it on the internet yet, John and Dan, you guys have been doing the rounds on the national soccer media scene. You're kind of you're kind of non-league soccer famous at this point.
Yeah.
So there's some interviews out there on some shows. The Outer Drive is one that goes on from Detroit, and Flacco Glass out of Denver. That guy's come out and talked to us a couple times. You don't want to miss them. It's always a good time to listen to John pretty much nonstop. Dan is very well spoken and stays on message.
Yeah, definitely. A brand man. A brand man.
So that's the Outer Drive podcast and the Flacco Glass podcast. Both excellent options for maybe your second and third favorite soccer podcast you listen to.
Yeah, check us out on Twitter. It'll be there. We'll post that stuff.
If you want to get a hold of us on this podcast, you can email us at mcscpodcast@gmail.com. Especially now we start signing guys and we're starting to fill out the roster again for next year. I'm sure you guys are going to have some questions about the kind of players we're looking for and what happened with some guys and why other guys fell through, things like that. So feel free to email us and ask us any questions, especially about this NPSL move as well. You can tweet at us at MPLS City SC, or you can tweet directly to John and I. John is at Johnny Business with 2 N's, 2 Z's, and 2 S's, and I am at Mexinate. And that is all for this week. Next week is going to be our holiday episode. We're putting on our elf hats, and we will have the man with the nickname and no Twitter account in the house, Steve, will be here to talk us through his freshman season at UW Green Bay and how excited he is to come back and join us in the summer. As always, I am Nate.
And I am John.
And how in the hell could we leave you without blasting a little Go Get 'Em Tiger? Are they going to release a Christmas album? Because I would love to play it next week.
I don't think so, but
I think we'll have to settle with this. For this.
We'll put in the request.
Well, thanks everyone. We will talk to you next week.
Goodbye.